welcome to the data channel, and you're watching SQL Bootcamp for Data Professional. As part of this video, we will discuss the exist operator in SQL. So it is basically used to check if a subquery returns any rows, right? And it is often used in conditional statement to determine whether a specific condition is met on the result of a subquery. So basically, we will take some examples and we'll understand when to use it and what are the scenario that we can use it in this video. Before proceeding, if you are new to this channel, we would recommend you to please subscribe and also press bell button for instant notifications. So let's get started. So a couple of key points when we are using exist clause, right? So the exist clause operator returns true if the subquery returns at least one row. Basically, what it means is so exist operator works with the concept of a subquery, right? So suppose you're writing a query here, and then so you are adding a exist clause, right? It's similar to in, right? So so exist clause is having a subquery. So subquery will return. So this is a subquery, right? And this is a main query. So subquery will have to return at least one value, at least one row to the outside query. So in that case, it will return true. If this subquery returns one or more rows, that means it returns as a true, or else it returns as a false, right? And the subquery typically checks for a condition related to the outer query. So the exist operator is more about the presence of the row, not the value or not the data. So here it doesn't matter whether you give select star, select one, right? It doesn't matter about what you give because it doesn't care about the value. It just care about the number of rows or the presence of rows, and that the presence of rows should be one or more. So then only we'll consider as the presence of rows. So only then it will say it as a true, and so the outer query can return values, right? Otherwise, outer query doesn't return any values. It will be zero rows. So that's the main thing about the exist clause. So now let's quickly jump to the practicals, right? So let's consider uh, you are having a employee table and you are having a project table, right? And so employee table is having employee ID, name, department, and hire date, right? And the project table is having project ID, project name, employee ID, and the start date. Basically, you can see here each project is having a uh, like employee ID. Employee ID here is basically it is a foreign key which is referring to the primary key in the employee table, right? If you see, employee 1 is working in two projects, project alpha and project delta, and employee 2 is working for beta, employee 3 is working for gamma, and so on, right? Basically, we will take a use case where we want to retrieve employees who are assigned to at least one project, right? That is our goal. That is our objective to write a query, okay? So when you do a select of one, what exactly happens? It doesn't work. So inner query doesn't work here because that's the first important point you need to remember. So when you're giving in clause, right? In clause will work as a independently. So it doesn't depend on the outer query. But here the subquery is dependent on the outer query. Why? The reason is in the where clause you are joining the inner table like project table with the employee table, right? Here you are giving in the outer query employee you are giving as e, in the inner query you are giving project, and here you are joining both. That's why you cannot independently execute only the inner query here, right? So that's the point number one. And the point number two is here you are using a exist clause which is similar to the in clause. However, so even though you are using one here, so it doesn't matter. You can use one, you can use star. Okay, so because the only the number of values, if there is at least one value, it'll work or it'll execute, right? And you have an employee E, and you are selecting employee ID and name. That is what you are interested in. right? Once you execute this, so here as per our expectation, where we want to retrieve the employees who are associated with at least one project. So that is what you're getting the result here. Query to retrieve employees who are assigned to at least one project. So if you really see here, like employee 1, 2, 3, and 5, these four people are there, but employee ID 5, he is not assigned to any project, right? That is why in the employee ID 5, for employee ID 5, so for employee ID 4, he is not assigned to any project. If you see, right, employee ID 4 is not in any of these projects. So that is why if you execute this query, when you execute this query, so employee ID 4 is not in the list. And similarly, to negate this clause, where you want to get the employees, or you want to retrieve the employees who are not assigned to any project, who are not assigned to any project. So you want to get that list. So that in that case you can just negate this, you can make it as not exists. As you can see, this is a person who is not assigned to any project. So that is how you kind of use that exist clause to derive this values. And basically, if you want to see the execution, how this query actually executes, right? The outer query, whatever you see, the outer query selects employee ID, employee name from the employee table, right? And next, what happens is, for every row in the employee table, right? For every row in the employee table, as you can see, the query evaluates exist conditions in the where clause, right? In the where clause. And then what the subquery does, the subquery checks the projects table to see if there are at least one row where this condition satisfies, right? So this is a correlated subquery because the subquery depend on the current row of the outer query. So that is what we were telling you. This is not a independent subquery, right? This is a subquery. Whenever you are using exist, you don't use a normal subquery. You use a correlated subquery. Correlated. That means the subquery is related to the main query. It cannot execute independently, right? And exist operator, what it does is it returns true if the subquery finds any match, right, in the projects table. If the subquery returns at least one row from the for the employee for the current employee ID, the where condition is satisfied and the employee is included in that result, right? So that is how it works. So this is how you can use for the employee table and project table. And let's take a one more use case where we were taking the customer table, right? And here also similarly, so in this you want to find, like, say for example, you want to find a customer who have placed at least one order. Like if you see customer and order table, so first is a customer table, so where it's having a list of all the customers. Yeah, even though there are customer ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but if you see the customer ID 4 has not placed any order, but 1 has placed 2 times and 2 has placed 2, 3, and 5 has placed 1 time per each. But we want to find a customer we have placed at least one order, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 5. And similarly, if you want to find a customer who has not placed any order, so in that case, you can just negate the, you can use negation like using not operator, not exist as a combination. So this one will find the customers who have not placed any order, right? That is how not placed any order. And so this is how we can use the exist clause and like negation also, like using not exist clause. So And when exactly we need to use exist operator, right? So whenever we want to improve the query performance, when you are only interested in the existence of the rows rather than the specific data, right? That is where you want to, that is a main case where you want to use the exist clause, because here you're not interested about the in the subquery, you're not interested in the value, right? You are just interested whether the rows are present, right? So, and you're not interested in the data. And this is closely nearer to the in clause, right? As an alternative to a in clause for better performance in certain databases when dealing with a larger data set. Because when there is a larger data set and you want to retrieve based on the value, so values might be more, right? If it is a millions of records or thousands of records, instead of, and you are not interested in the value, you're just interested in the existence. So in that case, it is better to use exist clause rather than in clause. So which makes which gives the better performance, and that too with a certain databases, right? So yeah, you need to be a little careful when you are using in clause when there is a large number of data sets, like millions of thousands of data sets. So you can just see whether exists suit in that scenario. In case the data is not of importance, but the value is not of importance. Rather, you just need an existence of the value, right? So, hope this was useful. Thanks for watching.